only 4 weeks left of the fantasy season. And here's the rest of the season rankings at the tight end position. The first guy, who else will it be but Travis Kelce? Kelce's been a monster all year. He's been worthy of a top 2 to 3rd round pick, and he just puts up 15 to 20 points a game, it seems like. He's in the top offense. He's got the best quarterback in football, and right now he's just doing his thing. And Kelce, week 13, he's got Denver. At Miami, week 14, week 15 at New Orleans, and week 16 versus Atlanta. So he's got 4 good matchups, in my opinion, where he could really turn it up another notch in the next 4 weeks here. Is Travis Kelce, and this guy, he's a stud, and he's going to be a beast the rest of the way. Number 2, TJ Hawkinson, the Detroit Lions. This guy, he's been one of the most consistent tight ends besides Kelce the whole season. He only had 2 single-digit fantasy points the whole year in PPR leagues is Hawkinson. And tight end, we know, is a tough position. Not many guys doing that good, and a lot of guys are inconsistent. But TJ Hawkinson, he's consistent. He's at Chicago in week 13, week 14 Green Bay, week 15 at Tennessee, and week 16 versus Tampa Bay. So pretty good matchups. He's going to get the ball. The only thing here, if Kenny Golladay comes back, he could get a couple targets stolen away from him, is Hawkinson. But he's still going to be a goal line threat and a middle of the field guy that's going to be open. Number 3, Darren Waller of the Vegas Raiders. The last few weeks, it's been on and off for him. 1 big game, 1 bad game type of pattern for Waller. But this guy, he's still the number 1 option behind Josh Jacobs in that Raider offense. And the Raiders, they don't really have receivers that get open or that are consistent at all themselves. So Waller, he's got a pretty solid matchup and 3 home games out of the last 4 he plays. At the Jets in week 13, week 14 Indy, week 15 the Chargers, and week 16 Miami. So all these defenses, Waller, he could have a big ball game against. Just Indianapolis is the tough matchup on his schedule. But this guy, he's a good player. He gets open, he makes plays, and he's a favorite of Derek Carr over there in Vegas. So he's number 3. Number 4, Rob Gronkowski of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We saw him have a big ball game yesterday with 6 catches, 106 yards for the Gronk. And Gronk, he's been very solid now the last 5-6 weeks. And he's got double-digit fantasy points in all his games except 1 in that time. He's on bye here in week 13, but week 14, he's got Minnesota, at Atlanta, at Detroit. So 3 great matchups for Gronk, where I could see him finding the end zone in all 3 of them and have good ball games. Brady, that's the only guy it seems like he really has trust in, is Rob Gronkowski. It seems like every time Brady throws to his other targets, he's shaking his head or they're just not in line. So I think Brady in these last 3 games down the stretch, he's going to rely more on Gronkowski like he did in yesterday's ball game. Number 5, Hunter Henry of the Los Angeles Chargers. Last 3 games, it's nice to see Henry in double-digit fantasy points and with touchdowns in 2 out of 3 of those ball games. And Henry now, week 13, he's got New England, then Atlanta week 14, at Vegas week 15, and Denver week 16. And the good thing here, he's got 3 home games, and all 4 of his games are indoors the rest of the way. And that's huge to have all indoor games with these last 4 ball games here. The weather, it's getting worse. The winter's here. And now to be indoors and have nice weather, obviously, that's a plus here. So I got Hunter Henry at 5. Herbert's looking for him more as the weeks go on, and he's been solid. Number 6, Mark Andrews of the Baltimore Ravens. He's got a good schedule coming up. Andrews, he caught the virus, though, in week 12, and he sat out in that ball game. But versus the Dallas Cowboys, I think he's going to have a big game, and hopefully he's 100% after overcoming it. He's got Dallas in week 13, week 14 at Cleveland, Jacksonville in week 15, and Giants week 16. So he's got a very favorable schedule, tons of matchups where he could have huge ball games as Andrews. But he's just been inconsistent this year, and that's mostly on Lamar Jackson, and he's been touchdown dependent mostly as well. So I got him 6th. Some people might not agree with it, but I'm just going with it here. Andrews as the 6th guy. Number 7, Evan Ingram of the New York Giants. This guy's been a target master for the Giants. The only down thing with him now, Daniel Jones, he's out a few weeks with the hamstring injury, and he was a Jones favorite. Target was Ingram with a whopping 40 targets in his last 4 games, and he had a big game versus Cincinnati. But now in Week 13, he's at Seattle, where he could get open and make plays in a game they're going to have to throw a lot. Arizona, Week 14, Week 15, Cleveland, and Week 16 at Baltimore. So Evan Ingram, mediocre schedule with a couple tough games in there. Colt McCoy, I think, is going to rely on Ingram a lot. The receivers, they haven't done much. They're running off too, those Giant receivers. Evan Ingram, he's the number one option in that Giant offense as a receiver. So right here, he's number 7. Number 8, Eric Ebron of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ebron, he's been pretty good most of the season. He's touchdown dependent as well, but like I said, not many teams are paying attention to him. There's so many guys over there in Pittsburgh. Ebron, he slips through the cracks, and he gets open in the secondary with one-on-one coverage with linebackers on him. And we saw him a few years ago have double-digit touchdowns. And this year, he's got a good schedule coming up the last 4 games. He's got Washington at Buffalo, at Cincinnati, and Indy. So he could take advantage of these matchups. He could get a few more touchdowns. And Ebron, I think he's a safe ranking here at number 8. Number 9, Jonnu Smith. Talk about a guy that's a really touchdown dependent. We saw Smith in Week 12 with the old goose egg, and he didn't even get targeted in this ball game versus Indianapolis, but he had a touchdown in 3 ball games in a row. Like I've been saying, he's 4th in the pecking order over there. He's Jonnu Smith in Tennessee. First it goes Henry, then it goes A.J. Brown, Corey Davis, and then him. But Smith, I still think he'll find the end zone a few more times in these last 4 ball games, and he's got easy matchups coming up. Cleveland in Week 13, Week 14 at Jacksonville, Week 15 Detroit, and Week 16 at Green Bay. So I think he could take advantage of these weak teams, get open, make a few plays, and find the end zone. Number 10, Robert Tonyan of the Green Bay Packers. This guy, I've been down on him most of the season, but the last 2 weeks he's got double-digit fantasy points. He's finding the end zone, and Rodgers now, he's really spreading that football all around the field to his other receivers. It's not just been Adams now the last 2 weeks. Everyone, they've been getting a little bit of it, and Tonyan, he's been pretty solid. He's 4th in fantasy points for tight ends on the season. I know he's going to have some down games and some great games, so you just got to ride out with him, and I got him 10. He's got Philly in Week 13, at Detroit Week 14, Carolina Week 15, and Tennessee Week 16. So pretty solid matchups, and I like it for Tonyan. Number 11, Dallas Goedart of the Philadelphia Eagles. I would have had him higher on the list, but now with Zach Ertz most likely coming back here in Week 13, I still think Goedart, he's going to get most of the snaps at tight end here for Philly. Plus, they don't want to pay Ertz, so they're going to keep him on the... They're going to be trailing, I say, in just about all of these ball games where they're going to have no choice but to throw. And Goedart, he's a guy that's going to work the middle of the field, get open, and make some plays. So I think he'll have some decent fantasy games, but I'm not expecting huge games with Richard Rodgers and Zach Ertz over there as well, a tight end for Philly. Number 12, Noah Fant of the Denver Broncos. Fant, he's been banged up with that ankle injury most of the season. Then we saw the huge quarterback problem here with the Denver Broncos in Week 12 where they threw the ball once and Fant had the only reception in that ball game for 12 yards. But anyway, he's got Kansas City in Kansas City Week 13, Week 14 at Carolina, Week 15 Buffalo, and Week 16 at the Chargers. So a pretty good schedule, but the quarterback plays inconsistent. Drew Lock, he should be back in Week 13, but like I said, Fant, he's been battling the injuries, and who knows what he's going to do. So Fant, I don't like him that much, but he's still a top 12 tight end the rest of the way here. Number 13, Hayden Hurst of the Atlanta Falcons, another guy who's been inconsistent. This week he had a decent game in Week 12 with 4 catches, 48 yards, and this guy's ceiling, I feel like 15 points. And he's another guy who had no points in Week 11. So Hurst, we don't know how much of work he's going to get at targets. This game, I think he got more because Julio Jones was out. But Jones, we'll see if he comes back or not. And Hayden Hurst, he's a guy I'll start, but I'm not crazy about starting him. He's 12 other guys obviously ahead of him. But he's a guy that's got to be in the top 15. He's got decent matchups coming up. New Orleans Week 13, Week 14 at the Chargers, Week 15 Tampa, and Week 16 in Kansas City. Most bowl games, they'll probably be trailing Atlanta because of their defense. But Hurst, he just don't have the knack for the end zone that much. And Matt Ryan, it's a lot of checkdowns to him where he don't get a lot of yards. So I got him at 13. Number 14, Trey Burton of the Indianapolis Colts. He's a red zone favorite of Phillip Rivers. And Burton, if he don't get the touchdowns, he's not getting many points. But he's pretty solid for fantasy. He's been putting up some decent games the last few weeks. And he's got good matchups as well. At Houston, Week 13. Vegas, Week 14 in Vegas. Week 15, Houston again. And then Week 16 at Pittsburgh. So the Colts, they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. Their running game, it really doesn't do much. And Burton, as long as he's getting those red zone targets and catching a few touchdowns, he's going to have value and make some plays. And the 15th and final guy on this list for rest of the season tight end rankings is Logan Thomas of the Washington football team. He's been mediocre and up and down as well this season as Thomas. Week 13, he's at Pittsburgh. Week 14 at Frisco. Week 15, Seattle. And Week 16, he closes it out versus Carolina. So Washington, they're trailing in most games, and they're throwing the football a lot. So Thomas, he's going to get opportunities. He's a big guy. They use him as some gadget plays as well. He was a quarterback in college, so they use him to throw the ball the last 2 weeks, 1 or 2 attempts. But anyway, Thomas, like I said, Alex Smith, he don't stretch the field a lot. And Thomas, he's a pretty good tight end, but I don't like him that much. But as a 15th option here for the rest of the season with some decent matchups, he's not a bad guy. So that's the top 15 tight ends I'm ranking rest of the season here for fantasy football.